So, how many people had a good Thanksgiving? Yeah, I could barely walk through the doors today. I was wobbling. I went to a Thanksgiving dinner with people in our church that their families are either globally away in places like Japan and Korea and others. And I invited them to an amazing manner buffet. You can put a picture up there. There's Paul and Gigo. They're eating. They're not even looking at me. I'm taking a picture of them. They don't even care that I'm there. And I invited them. And it was a great time. It was a great Thanksgiving. We ate a lot. It was merry. And we had a blast, basically eating nonstop. Thanksgiving, or particularly November, psychologists have studied this, is the most depressing time of the year. And you go, how could that be? Isn't Thanksgiving about family? Exactly. That's why there's a lot of depression, because it is the only time where you have no control if you get together or not, or you have the pressure to get together. Most of the year, for 10 months or 11 months out of the year, you can deflect and say you're busy or whatever excuse you can come up with. But this time, you have to face the fact that you have family. And 1/3 of the United States are on some type of prescription drug to try to alleviate depression. That's almost 100 million Americans taking drugs. Now this, psychologists say, is compounded in November. In November, many people want to quit their jobs. How many people know what I'm talking about? November, people are like, why am I doing this? Why am I sitting here? What am I doing with my life? I need to quit. And most people who quit in November regret their decision. Because November and Thanksgiving and the holidays approaching, especially with families and the tension that exists, compound a form of depression that's sometimes unexplainable. You could only explain it, as the Webster Dictionary calls this word, I call it being in a funk. Tell someone, sometimes I'm in a funk. Sometimes you're in a funk. And what is this noun? What does this definition mean, to be in a funk? To be in a funk means to be in a depression, a subtle depression you cannot snap out of. You wake up and you're in a funk. And some people call it waking up in the wrong side of the bed. Eating something, you think you explain it away by eating something wrong. Something that went bad, like Chipotle with the E. coli scare. Or Costco with its celery chicken salad scare. You go, well, it must be this. But the truth is, sometimes you're in a funk and you can't get out of it. And if you don't have people in your life that intentionally and even sometimes annoyingly and ruthlessly enter this funk, some people are on this funk for a very long time. Now, this text talks about a woman caught in the same predicament, same situation. The story we often find ourselves in a place of detachment and a place of deflection and isolation, and we don't even know for how long. But we know what that feels like when we want to push people away. How many people want to push people away when they're in a funk? Like someone texts you, you're like, I ain't answering that. Some people ask you, how are you? And you don't know why, but you feel this fits of rage. Why are you asking me, how are you? I'm fine. You know, the stage of denial is very simple, and usually most people are caught in between the two stages of grief, which is the first stage is what? Denial. The second stage is what? Anger. How are you? I'm fine. No, seriously, how are you? I'm fine. You see those two stages right there? We're caught between the deflection and anger because we don't even know why we're in this funk. The root, the anger and then the numbness is just the expression. The root is something we can't even explain. And actually, if you want to look at the definition of funk, it's actually a subtle, horrifying fear. There's something that you feel out of whack out of alignment in your being that you can't even explain, but it comes up. We've been talking about for the last couple of weeks about why we need accountability. And when we said accountability, we say that that's authentic community. Why those are inseparable, accountability and real community. And we talked about various reasons why we need accountability. And we said that a lot of people think accountability is for people to stop you from doing stupid things, to stop you from doing bad things. But we said, no, that's not the reason. We can only limit stupidity and limit pride, and that's one of the reasons. Second reason was, last week, we want to perpetuate in community the best of who we are. Love and joy and compound them. But today I want to talk about what happens in life when you enter a funk you can't get out of. Because this woman in John chapter 4 gets caught in a funk she can't get out of. And everybody in her community, her family, her friends cannot get her out of it. Only God could get her out of it. And I want to talk about today, when this happens to you, why you really need community, why you really need accountability. So let's look at this text and watch this. So verse 4 says, and you know if you've been here for a while, that I did a study on this, and when it says in verse 4, now he had to what? Go through Samaria. That's not true. We read this text, Jews and Samaritans, highly racial tension. Samaritans are a mixed, half Jew, half other mixed race, and therefore the Jews were racist against Samaritans. And therefore, why the Jordan River? How many people know what the Jordan River is? You heard of it before, right? It's really popular. This is where Jesus was baptized. Why it's popular is not only because it was a place of baptism, it was the river most Jewish people went out of their way to cross over so they can skip Samaria. So geographically, when the text says he had to go through Samaria, it doesn't mean geographically. It means what? Divine appointment. It means that Jesus was what? Intentionally going out of his way to meet this woman. And then he acts all slick and he's, on the well. She comes there and he's like, give me a drink. I'm thirsty. And so if you read it invertly, if you read the text and not the pretext, you catch that wrong, you think that this is just a geographic convenience. You had to stop by a gas station, you bumped into a friend. No, this was something that most Jewish people did not do, and this is why the disciples were also very worried and out of their comfort zone. And so when he came into the town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot, the ground Jacob had given his son Joseph, Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from his journey, of course he was tired, because he went out of his way, sat down by the well, and it was what? This is very important. It was about what? What time? How hot is the Middle East? How many people do well with people when it's hot and there's no AC? I mean, we can't even live without AC in my house. My son says he's hot all the time. He says, put the AC up. And we live in this first world. This is basically the third world, and this is the Middle East, 120 degrees. I mean, it does not make sense for any person to go draw water to take back home at noon. This woman is by herself at the well. Why is no one else there? Well, simple. Because no one is stupid. No one's going to draw water at 12 because it would evaporate. Most of the water that you work toward to get to bring back the house would evaporate by the time you go back because it's so hot. Why is she motivated to do this? Well, because of her life. When we read about her life, 5 husbands and the next husband, and the person she's living with is not her husband. In a patriarchy, that's frowned upon in our world, and we're really progressive in New York. That would be still frowned upon. Yeah, 5 husbands? Wow. I could deal with 2. Kim Kardashian, 2, 3, I don't know how many. Right? I mean, but 5, wow. You need to get your life together, She, in a patriarchy intensified in honor and shame, Asian type of culture, is married 5 times. Yeah, her life is a mess. So she wanted to what? Avoid people. It's a place of isolation. She wanted to move out of the way. She knew everybody knew the story, but she wanted to deflect and be at a place to get some water and be away from people. That's why she's there at 12. Now, of course, Jesus knows this. Tell someone Jesus already knows this. Just like the people who love you know it when you're in a funk. It's obvious to everyone else around you that you're not yourself, except us sometimes. Because sometimes when we're in a funk, we know it, but we want to be in denial. Just like her. Jesus answered, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst indeed. And the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. The woman said, sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming back here to draw water, right? Her prayer, what is our prayer in times of funk? Just solve, fix me, fix the problem so I can go back living my life. Give me the simplest solution. That would really help me out. Then I could avoid people altogether. How many people want to do that sometimes? You just want to avoid people altogether. You have to deal with people? Just get out of my face. I don't need you. So that's her prayer. That would be really great. She thinks that she's solving her problem. And so Jesus says, okay, you want to solve your problem? Let's go to the root, not the expression. Jesus goes, okay, if you want to get this water, he goes, go call your husband and come back. Jesus is doing some real talk here. He skipped all the deference, all the political talk, all kinds of courtesy. Oh, go call your husband. And this woman's really good. I mean, if I was talking to Jesus and Jesus was probing into my heart, I'd be like mush and jello. Okay, I lay before you, Lord. She, without blinking, did not know who she was dealing with, like God. Says, I have no husband, she replied. You crazy. Jesus said to her, you are right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you had 5 husbands, and the man you have now is not your husband. And to reply, she says, what you have said is quite true. Do you see this woman? She's been deflecting for so long. She's been isolated for so long that she's learned to lie, almost pathologically, about the funk she's in her life. While Jesus is trying to gently and, in a way, ruthlessly, at the same time, trying to get her out of this place. Why is this woman avoiding everyone? And even the person God sent to set her free. Sometimes you don't even know the people that are asking you are your redemption out of this funk, but you don't care because you can't see it. You see, this is why we need community. Tell someone next to you, I need you. You do need people. We need people. This is why I need you. You know, I never really entered into a funk in my life until both my parents died within a 18-month period transition. My mom got cancer out of nowhere. She had throat cancer. Her cancer started imploding out of her neck. She was a prayer warrior. She loved God. She never smoked in her life. And ironically, she gets the cancer. Most people get smoking and drinking most of their lives. One of my biggest emotional support in my life, out of nowhere, dies. And then right after her, my dad dies. Everyone knew outside of me that I was in a funk except me. People said, are you going to take some time off? I said, why? People die. Denial. How are you doing? I'm okay. Why do you think anything's wrong? Because I feel like a distance. There's no distance. Again, denial, and then some anger. A lot of times when we think that people who push us, who are in a funk, push us away, we think that we need to give them space. Oh, these people, we need to respect the sacredness of grief, and we need to allow them to be by themselves. Tell someone that's stupid. You know why that's stupid? How could you let someone in denial and anger by themselves? They will seriously harm themselves. We have to get people to a place of acceptance. You know, in this time, my wife and I really were going through a difficult time. And this one, the staff, and we talked about this, started pushing back. You know, because the church was falling apart. They're like, are you going to lead? I'm like, I am leading. You know? They're like, no, you're not. You're not letting anyone in. And we want to respect your space, but we don't know how to do this without you. You know, and it was getting loud in my kitchen. They were just in my face. I was like, all right. And I realized that I was in a funk I couldn't get out of. Why we really need community. First lesson we learned from this text. Why do we need accountability in community? Read it with me. What does it say? Because what? Falling into what? Slumps and funks are what? Unavoidable in life. How many people want to be in a slump? Slump in dating. Slump in life. Slump in a sport you play. No one wants to be in a slump. You don't choose. Oh, you wake up, I want to be in a slump today. I want to be in a funk. I want to be out of alignment. No one does that. But listen to this carefully. Listen to this woman. She did not want her life to end up in a way to be married 5 times and be living with someone that's not her husband. She didn't plan that. Life happened to her. We can't control the external circumstances. We can't control life and death. The people we love could pass away. And when they do, we don't know how to react. We need others. And you're in a funk and you're in a slump because life happens. It's not if, it's not but, it's what? It's when. It will come. The Bible promises, life promises, it will come in our lives. And when it comes, the parachute is people that will invade our space. People that will confront us and what? Just like Jesus, close the distance. Are you in a slump or a funk in your life? It's okay. A lot of people think it's not okay. No, this is not normal. It is. There is no way. And we've only been studying this now empirically, scientifically, for about 35 years. The discipline of psychology comes out of World War II. When everyone thought in the roaring 20s that life would be victorious, that life would be perfect, that life would be awesome. But no, people were killed. More 16 million people were killed. And everyone who had an optimistic view of life realized that life doesn't always end up like you think it would. And the trauma of killing and war and hate. There's an emotional ecology that logic or intelligence can't explain. There's something about the human soul that's actually sacred. It's really complicated and complex to simplify. It takes a lifetime to what? Unwind the things of the soul. And that's why when my wife is going through something or I'm going through something and I try to fix it, she just goes, "Can you just shut up?" No, but I'm really smart. I know a lot. You know? We don't just study doctorate stuff like, I have a doctorate in leadership. I do that to lead you at this moment. She goes, will you shut up? I just want you to be here with me. He goes, and then I go, I am with you. I'm trying to help you. We don't understand that when people are in slumps and funks, what people need is presence. Right? I mean, it's nothing you can do to fix it. Because computing, quantifying the lost. For her, this woman, her loss of 5 husbands, the life she dreamed, the loss, the grief of that cannot be quantified by a conversation. You can comfort. You can unwind the layers. But grief cannot be solved or fixed in hours. And in a rushed culture, that's a very difficult process to unfold. That's why we need each other. Can't control slumps and funks. It will come. Not if, not but when. Let's move down. Look at what the woman does. This is how you know when Jesus reads her mail prophetically. It was illegal, okay? Prophetically, this is her response after she says, Jesus reads her mail and says, let's go to the root of why you're in this funk. She says, sir, the woman said, I can see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place we must worship is in Jerusalem. Where does she take this conversation? Anytime you're in a conversation and you want to deflect from the issue, just make it political. Make it politically incorrect. Say something outrageous. And she knows the pride of the Jews. She knows if she talks about worshiping and mountains and what belongs to who, Jesus could be like, or, let me lecture you on what theology you should have. And so she what? Deflects. So when we try to close the gap of someone in a funk or in a slump in their lives, what usually ends up taking place is deflection. And that deflection, a lot of times, if your family members, will even be really ruthless. They'll bring your stuff out. You can't help me. Your life is like this. And then you're like, well, forget you then. People in a funk, you try to help them, and you get angry at them. I'm just trying to help you out. Why gotta go through this? I love you. Don't you see that? I don't care. And the person deflecting, the person looking at you and trying to be mean as possible to what? Push you away. Because that grief, folks, grief, complex. Still trying to understand grief. There's so much fear. It's not even pain. It's so much fear of what life will be like. They don't want to what? The third stage. The fourth stage of acceptance, it goes from denial, anger, to what? Depression, bargaining, and then finally what? Acceptance. Acceptance is the final stage, and let me just tell you this, most people never get there. So let me tell you right now, look at someone next to you. They might be in depression or anger, so pick the right day. Because grief, how do you think psychologists make their money? And why it's a booming industry? It takes time to get to acceptance. It takes time to get there. And so, when we push people in the funk, in depression, in isolation, they will push back. Sometimes politically, it would look like a deference, a courtesy, but it's to avoid the root. You know, for me, the most loving thing, friends, and a couple of people have done this when my parents passed away in our church was, a couple of people came to me and said, Pastor Sam, we were so close once before, but I feel like we have no relationship anymore. You don't talk. You talk a lot. What happened? I don't feel like talking. And that's why we feel like there's a distance. Are we okay? There was a fear in people's hearts. Like, are we going to even ever have a relationship again? And the most loving thing people have done for me was approach me at that time, invade my space. Because you know what the Bible says? Perfect love, what? Casts out fear. The only thing we can hold on to when we're in grief is fear. To avoid the inevitable, right? That your parents are gone, that this abuse took place, that this injustice happened, that this is real. What world will make that better? Love. Perfect love casts out fear. So, what's the second reason then? We need accountability and community. Why do we need it? Because what? We need people who what? When we what? Push them away. If you have these people in your life, raise your hand right now and praise the Lord. Say hallelujah. Because then you're in a safe place. If you don't have people in your life to push you, when you push them away, raise your hand and say, sign me up. Because the worst thing about being in a funk, or the most terrifying thing about loss and grief is this, folks. I've learned from my own losses, is until someone pushes you and invades your space, you will never break out of it. And you become this nasty person, and you were never this person. You become this cold person, detached, aloof person that you were not wired to be. You were meant to be kind and generous and fun. And funny, well, sometimes. But now you're cold, distant, and aloof. And times nasty to people. Not because you're nasty, but because you're living in fear. And that's why Jesus came to Samaria. He covered the distance. He went out of his way because he loves. And he set her free. Amen? That's the community God calls us to be. And those are the people we need in our lives. Because what? You can't control when you're going to fall into a slump or a funk. It's not if, it's not but, it's when it happens. And we'll be smart enough and prudent enough to surround ourselves in our lives for people that will push us back when we push them away. So we could find who God made us to be again and find wholeness.